My name is Larry, 62 years old, and until recently, I thought my daughter Amanda and I had an unbreakable bond. For decades, we shared everything: her triumphs, her sorrows, her dreams. Then, my beloved wife Margaret was diagnosed with terminal cancer. What followed was a nightmare I never imagined living through. When Margaret passed away, I called Amanda. Her response, "Today is my husband's birthday." Those words changed everything between us. If you've ever experienced family betrayal, I'd love to hear where you're watching from. Please like and subscribe as we explore what happens when the people we love most break our hearts. I built a beautiful life with Margaret over 40 years of marriage. We met in college. I was studying engineering, and she was pursuing education. Her smile caught my attention first, then her kindness kept me coming back. Within a year, I knew she was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. We married young at 22 despite our parents' concerns. Those early years were tight financially, but we were rich in love and determination. My career as an engineer gradually took off. I started at a local construction company, putting in long hours and weekends. Margaret supported every late night, every business trip, every stress-filled project deadline. By 35, I had worked my way up to management, and by 45, I became CEO of that same construction company. We went from our small apartment to a modest house, to finally the beautiful two-story colonial home where we spent our later years together. Amanda came along after we'd been married for 5 years. From the moment she was born, she was the light of our lives. Margaret was a natural mother, patient, loving, but firm when needed. I'll admit, I was the softer touch. Whenever Amanda would run to me with her big eyes filled with tears, I couldn't say no. Margaret would gently scold me. "Larry, you're not doing her any favors by giving her everything she wants." As Amanda grew up, I noticed small changes in her personality. The sweet little girl who once gave away her toys to less fortunate children at school became increasingly focused on material things. In high school, she demanded the latest clothes, the newest phone, the best car. Margaret and I worried, but chalked it up to normal teenage behavior. We believed our strong family values would prevail once she matured. Amanda did well in college, graduating with a business degree. We were so proud when she landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm. But around that time, she met Robert. He was 7 years older, worked in finance, and had an air of ambition that seemed to consume everything around him. From their first date, Margaret had reservations. "There's something about him that feels cold, Larry," she told me after meeting him. "The way he talks about money, about status. I'm worried about our Amanda." I brushed off Margaret's concerns, happy to see our daughter with someone successful. But over the following years, I began to see what my wife had noticed immediately. Robert viewed relationships as transactions. People were valuable based on what they could offer him. And sadly, Amanda began adopting his worldview. Their wedding was lavish, far beyond what Margaret and I thought appropriate. When we suggested scaling back, Amanda accused us of trying to ruin her special day. Robert smirked in the background as she railed against our outdated and small-minded thinking. We relented paying for most of it, despite our discomfort. After the wedding, Amanda's visits became less frequent. When they did visit, Robert would steer conversations toward our retirement plans, our investments, our will. Margaret found it distasteful, but I made excuses. "He's just financially minded," I'd say. "It's his way of showing interest." And the birth of our grandchildren briefly brought Amanda back to us. Jackson came first, followed by Sophia 3 years later. Margaret was overjoyed, throwing herself into grandmotherhood with abandon. She knitted blankets, baked cookies, created handmade toys. For a while, Amanda seemed to soften as well, bringing the children for weekly visits. But as the kids grew older, the visits again became less frequent. Robert's career was demanding. Amanda's schedule was packed. They enrolled the children in endless activities. Margaret would call suggesting dates to visit only to be told they were too busy. I could see the hurt in my wife's eyes, though she never complained. "They're building their own life, Larry," she'd say. "We need to respect that." But what neither of us realized then was how completely Robert had changed our daughter. The woman she was becoming bore little resemblance to the girl we'd raised, and soon a devastating diagnosis would reveal just how far Amanda had drifted from the values we thought we'd instilled. It started with fatigue. Margaret, always energetic despite approaching 60, began taking afternoon naps. Then came the weight loss, subtle at first, then more noticeable. I urged her to see our doctor, but she insisted it was just age catching up with her. When she finally relented and went for a checkup, I never imagined the nightmare awaiting us. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at work when Margaret phoned, her voice unnaturally calm. "Can you come home? Larry, Dr. Patterson wants to talk to both of us." I knew then. Something inside me already understood what was coming. I drove home with white knuckles gripping the steering wheel, praying I was wrong. Dr. Patterson didn't waste time with platitudes. "The tests show advanced pancreatic cancer. It's already spread to the liver." His words fell like bombs in our living room. "With treatment, we're looking at perhaps 6 months. I'm so sorry." Margaret sat stoically nodding, as if receiving a weather report rather than a death sentence. I felt the room spin, grabbed the armrest of the couch to steady myself. 6 months. Half a year. How could the love of my life, my partner of 4 decades, be reduced to such a cruel time frame? That night after the doctor left, Margaret and I held each other and cried until there were no tears left. We talked about practical things, treatment options, palliative care, funeral preferences, with a strange detachment, as if discussing characters in a movie rather than our own lives. Then Margaret brought up Amanda. "I don't want to tell her how serious it is," she said firmly. "Not yet. She has the children, her job, so many responsibilities." "But Margaret, she's your daughter. She should know." "She'll worry unnecessarily. Let's just say I'm having some health issues. Nothing too alarming." I disagreed strongly, but respected Margaret's wishes. It was her illness, her choice how to handle it. So when we called Amanda the next day, we downplayed the diagnosis significantly. "Mom's having some health challenges," I said carefully. "Nothing too serious, but she'd love to see you and the kids more often if you can manage it." Amanda sounded distracted. "Of course, Dad. Things are crazy right now with Robert's promotion and the kids' activities, but we'll definitely try to visit soon." That soon stretched into weeks. Margaret began chemotherapy, suffering through nausea, hair loss, and debilitating weakness. Still, she insisted on maintaining as much normalcy as possible. She continued her volunteer work until she physically couldn't anymore. She tended her garden until standing became too painful. Through it all, she called Amanda weekly, never mentioning the cancer's severity, always focusing on the grandchildren and Amanda's life instead. 3 times Margaret called when the pain was particularly bad, just needing to hear her daughter's voice for comfort. 3 times Amanda didn't pick up. Later there would be text messages with excuses in a meeting at Jackson's soccer game, having dinner with Robert's boss. Each missed call dimmed the light in Margaret's eyes a little more. "She's busy, Larry," Margaret would say, putting the phone down. "We were busy at her age too, remember? But we were never too busy for family, never too busy for someone who needed us." I bit my tongue, not wanting to add to Margaret's burden. For Margaret's 59th birthday, what would be her last, Amanda promised to bring the family for dinner. Margaret rallied her waning strength, determined to cook despite my protests. She prepared Amanda's favorite childhood meals, baked a chocolate cake from scratch, and set the table with our best china. 2 hours before they were due to arrive, Amanda called. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Sophia has a slight fever, and we don't want to risk getting you sick with your immune system being weak from the chemo." Margaret's face fell, but her voice remained steady. "Of course, sweetheart. The children come first. We can celebrate another time." After hanging up, Margaret sat at our beautifully set table and cried silently. I had never felt so helpless watching the woman I loved suffer a pain I couldn't alleviate. The chemotherapy failed to slow the cancer's progression. Within 4 months of diagnosis, Margaret's oncologist gently suggested we stop treatment and focus on keeping her comfortable. Hospice care began with nurses visiting daily, while I took leave from work to be with her around the clock. In her final weeks, Margaret grew increasingly concerned with putting her affairs in order. She wrote letters to each grandchild to be given when they were older. She organized photo albums labeled family heirlooms and prepared detailed notes about family recipes and traditions. One afternoon, as I helped her into bed after a particularly difficult day, she gripped my hand with surprising strength. "Larry, promise me something." "Anything, my love." "Promise you'll forgive Amanda." The request caught me off guard. Forgive her for what? Margaret's eyes, still beautiful despite the illness that had ravaged her body, filled with tears. For not being here, for not understanding. She's lost her way a bit, but she's still our girl. Promise you'll forgive her and keep our family together after I'm gone. I promised, though a part of me already resented Amanda for the pain her absence caused Margaret. The night before Margaret died, she rallied unexpectedly, what hospice nurses often call the final surge. She was more lucid than she had been in weeks, her pain temporarily at bay. We talked for hours about our life together, our favorite memories, our hopes for Amanda and the grandchildren. She asked me to pass her a small box from her nightstand drawer. "I bought this for Amanda months ago," she explained, showing me a beautiful silver locket. Inside was a tiny photo of the 4 of us, Margaret, me, Amanda, and baby Jackson, taken the day he was born. With it was a handwritten note. "Amanda, love is the only true legacy we leave behind. I will love you forever. Mom." "Make sure she gets this," Margaret whispered, "and tell her I understand." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Margaret died peacefully the next morning, her hand in mine. As her breathing slowed and finally stopped, I felt a part of myself die with her. 40 years of shared life gone. The house suddenly felt cavernous, echoing with memories and unsaid words. In a daze, I called the hospice nurse, then the funeral home, as we'd prearranged. Only after those calls did I reach for my phone to dial Amanda's number, the weight of Margaret's final task heavy on my shoulders. The morning after Margaret died remains burned in my memory with perfect clarity. Outside rain tapped against the windows, gentle, persistent, like Margaret's spirit had always been. I sat at our kitchen table, her empty chair across from mine, and stared at my phone for nearly an hour before finding the strength to call our daughter. Amanda answered on the 4th ring, her voice bright and cheerful. "Dad, I was just about to call you. How's Mom today?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't realized until that moment how completely Amanda had distanced herself from the reality of her mother's condition. "Amanda," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "your mother passed away early this morning." There was silence, then a soft intake of breath. I braced myself for tears, for the wail of grief I myself had barely contained since Margaret's last breath. Instead, Amanda's voice came back controlled, almost casual. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Dad." I gripped the phone tighter, thinking perhaps I hadn't been clear. Amanda, your mother died. Margaret is gone. I understand, Dad, she replied. And then, God help me, I heard a smile in her voice as she continued. But today is Robert's birthday. We've planned a big celebration at the country club. All his colleagues will be there. The room tilted sideways. I couldn't have heard correctly. My daughter could not possibly be prioritizing her husband's birthday party over the death of her mother. Amanda, I said slowly, fighting to keep my voice steady. I need you to come home. There are arrangements to make. Your mother wanted you to help plan the service. A pause then. Can't it wait until tomorrow? Or maybe the day after Robert's birthday is really important for his networking. The senior partners will all be there. I closed my eyes, Margaret's face swimming behind my eyelids. No, Amanda. This can't wait. Your mother is dead. The funeral home needs decisions today. Dad, she said, her tone shifting to one I recognized, the same she'd used as a teenager when negotiating for a later curfew. Mom is already gone. She won't know if I'm there today or tomorrow. But Robert's birthday is happening now. This party could mean a promotion for him. Blood roared in my ears. Are you seriously telling me that your husband's birthday party is more important than your mother's death? Don't be dramatic, Dad. It's not about importance. It's about timing. The dead can wait. The living have schedules. I nearly dropped the phone. This couldn't be my daughter speaking. Not the little girl Margaret and I had raised with such care, such love. The dead can wait. Your mother, who gave birth to you, who loved you every day of your life, who called for you in her final weeks. And I was busy, Dad. I have my own life, my own family. Amanda's voice rose defensive now. Mom understood that. She always said family comes first, and Robert and the kids are my family now. And your mother wasn't. My voice broke on the last word. Amanda sighed heavily. Look, I'll try to come by after the party. It probably won't go too late. Or maybe tomorrow morning. I stared at Margaret's empty chair, remembering her final request. Promise you'll forgive, Amanda. In that moment, forgiveness seemed impossible. The viewing will be tomorrow afternoon, I said flatly. The funeral is the day after at 10 a.m. It would mean a lot if you could be there. I'll try, Dad, really. But I can't make any promises. This birthday is really important to Robert. More important than saying goodbye to your mother. Her silence was answer enough. You've made your choice, Amanda, I said quietly. Your mother wanted you to have this. I thought of the silver locket in my pocket. I'll keep it for you until after Robert's very important birthday. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking so badly I had to set the phone down on the table. Grief and rage warred within me. Grief for Margaret, rage at the daughter who couldn't be bothered to mourn her. For hours I sat alone in our too-quiet house, surrounded by evidence of Margaret's life. Her gardening magazine stacked neatly on the coffee table, her reading glasses perched on top, her favorite throw blanket draped over the arm of the couch, her handwriting on the calendar hanging in the kitchen. Appointments she would never keep. Eventually, I forced myself to call Frank, my oldest friend, who arrived within 30 minutes bearing food I couldn't eat and comfort I couldn't feel. He helped me contact the funeral home, choose a casket. Margaret would have liked simple, elegant, nothing ostentatious, and select readings for the service. All tasks Amanda should have helped with. All moments a daughter should share with her grieving father. That night alone in the bed, Margaret and I had shared for decades. I stared at the ceiling and wondered how it was possible to feel so much pain without physically breaking apart. The house creaked and settled around me, its emptiness a physical presence. My phone pinged with a text message. Amanda, sorry again about not coming today. Attached is a photo of Robert blowing out his candles. Everyone had a great time. We'll try to stop by tomorrow. Love you. The attached photo showed Amanda beaming beside Robert at a lavishly decorated table, champagne glasses raised in celebration. In the background, I could see Jackson and Sophia dressed in their finest clothes, looking confused and uncomfortable amid the adults. I turned off my phone, rolled over, and finally allowed myself to weep. For Margaret, for the daughter we thought we had raised, and for the family that would never be whole again. The day of Margaret's funeral dawned gray and drizzling, the weather matching my interior landscape. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night wandering through the house, touching Margaret's things, breathing in the fading scent of her perfume on her scarves. By morning, I felt hollowed out, operating on autopilot. Frank arrived early to drive me to the funeral home. My hands were shaking too badly to manage the car keys. He didn't mention Amanda's absence, but I could read the question in his eyes. She had a birthday party to attend, I said flatly as we pulled out of the driveway. Frank's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, but he said nothing. The funeral home had done a beautiful job. Margaret looked peaceful, almost like she was sleeping, though something essential was clearly missing. The spark, the vitality, the indefinable quality that had made her Margaret. I adjusted the collar of her dress, her favorite, the blue one she wore to our anniversary dinners, and placed the silver locket intended for Amanda in her hands. Our daughter hadn't called or visited since our conversation. The locket at least would remain with someone who understood its value. People began arriving. Neighbors, colleagues, Margaret's fellow volunteers from the hospital and literacy program, members of our church. Each expressed surprise at Amanda's absence. "She'll be here soon," I lied, the words bitter on my tongue. She had some things to take care of first. A chair had been reserved for Amanda in the front row beside mine. As the service began, it remained conspicuously empty. The minister spoke of Margaret's kindness, her generosity, her unfailing love for family and friends. Several people shared memories, how Margaret had taught their children to read, brought meals during illnesses, remembered every birthday and anniversary with thoughtful personal gifts. When Margaret's casket was carried in, my phone vibrated in my pocket. With shaking hands, I checked it, hoping against hope it was Amanda saying she was on her way. Instead, I found another text message with a photo attachment, Amanda, Robert, and the children at what appeared to be a post-birthday brunch, mimosa glasses raised toward the camera. The message read, "Sorry Dad won't make it today after all. Robert's parents surprised us with brunch reservations at the Ritz. Thinking of you and Mom. Love you both. Both." As if Margaret were still alive. As if this weren't her funeral. As if Amanda hadn't chosen bloody mimosas over saying goodbye to her mother. Frank, sitting beside me, saw the message before I could hide it. He placed a steadying hand on my shoulder, squeezing gently. "I'm so sorry, Larry." I slipped the phone back into my pocket, my decision crystallizing. The daughter Margaret and I had raised was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Someone who valued material things over family bonds. Someone who would choose a birthday party over a funeral. Someone who would send celebratory photos while her father sat alone at her mother's service. When it came time for me to speak, I approached the podium on legs that felt disconnected from my body. I had prepared remarks, memories of our life together, Margaret's strength during her illness, her devotion to family. Instead, looking out at the crowd of people who had loved my wife enough to come honor her, I spoke from the heart. Margaret believed in forgiveness. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. She believed that family was sacred, that no mistake was too great to overcome with love. In her final hours, she made me promise to keep our family together. I paused, looking at Amanda's empty chair. I don't know if I can keep that promise, not because I don't want to, but because sometimes people make choices that create chasms too wide to bridge. Margaret was the bridge in our family. Without her, My voice broke, and Frank half rose from his seat, ready to come to my aid. I waved him back down. Without her, I'm not sure what's left. But I know this Margaret's legacy isn't in material things. It isn't in the house we built or the money we saved. It's in how she loved, fully, unconditionally, consistently. That's what I'll try to carry forward. Not just forgiveness, though God knows that's what she would want, but the kind of love that shows up, the kind that prioritizes people over things, the kind that never ever chooses a party over a funeral. A murmur ran through the crowd. Those who knew Amanda looked uncomfortable. Those who didn't looked confused. I didn't care. For 40 years, I'd been the diplomatic one, smoothing over difficult moments while Margaret spoke hard truths. Now, with her gone, perhaps it was my turn to speak truth. After the service, people approached with condolences and offers of help. Several mentioned how shocked they were at Amanda's absence, though most were kind enough to phrase it gently. I'm sure she had her reasons, one of Margaret's fellow hospital volunteers said, though her expression suggested no reason could possibly be good enough. At the cemetery, I stood alone by the gravesite as they lowered Margaret's casket into the ground. Frank had offered to stay, but I needed these final moments alone with my wife. Rain fell steadily now, soaking through my suit jacket, but I barely noticed. All I could think of was Margaret's final request and my failure to honor it. I tried, Margaret, I whispered, as the first shovelful of earth fell onto her casket with a hollow thud. But she's not the girl we raised anymore. I don't know how to reach her. As I turned to leave, I made a silent vow. Margaret had asked me to forgive Amanda, but she hadn't asked me to enable her. From this day forward, our daughter would learn that choices have consequences. It was a lesson Margaret and I had apparently failed to teach her adequately the first time around. Walking back to Frank's waiting car, I pulled out my phone and texted Thomas Green, our family lawyer for the past 20 years. Need to see you tomorrow about changing my will. The days following Margaret's funeral passed in a gray haze. I moved through our home like a ghost, touching her things, sitting in her favorite chair, wearing one of her scarves around my neck to catch the fading scent of her perfume. Friends called and visited, bringing food I couldn't eat and comfort I couldn't feel. Frank checked on me daily sometimes, just sitting silently beside me as we watched baseball games I didn't care about. Margaret's absence was a physical ache, a constant pressure in my chest that made it hard to breathe. At night, I'd reach across the bed for her, only to encounter cold sheets and the crushing weight of remembering. During the day, I'd catch myself calling out to share some small observation or memory, the silence that answered deafening in its finality. Amanda didn't call, didn't visit. No further text messages arrived with inappropriate photos or casual mentions of both of us, as if her mother were still alive. The silence from my daughter hurt almost as much as Margaret's absence, though in a different way. Margaret's absence was a wound I couldn't heal. Amanda's was a betrayal I couldn't forgive. On the 5th day after the funeral, as I sat staring at a photo album from happier times, the doorbell rang. I considered ignoring it. Another well-meaning neighbor with a casserole, no doubt, but something compelled me to answer. Amanda stood on the porch, designer sunglasses perched on her head, dressed in an outfit that probably cost more than my first car. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then, without a word, I stepped aside to let her in. She moved past me into the living room, her high heels clicking on the hardwood floors Margaret had always kept so meticulously polished. Without asking, she sat in Margaret's chair. I remained standing, unable to form words past the sudden surge of anger. "Dad," she finally said. Her voice carefully modulated, as if speaking to a difficult client. "I wanted to check on you, see how you're doing." 5 days. 5 days after her mother's funeral, which she hadn't bothered to attend, and now she wanted to check on me. "I'm grieving," I replied flatly. "My wife of 40 years is dead." Amanda flinched slightly at my tone, but recovered quickly. "I know this is hard for you, Dad. It's hard for all of us. But we need to talk about practical matters, too." "Practical matters?" "Yes. The house, Mom's things, the will." She trailed off, then added with forced brightness, "But first, how are you really doing? Are you eating, sleeping?" The concern might have seemed genuine if it hadn't been preceded by mentions of property and inheritance. I sat down heavily on the couch, suddenly exhausted by the performance. "Why weren't you at the funeral, Amanda?" She blinked clearly, not expecting such directness. "Dad, I explained that. Robert's birthday was extremely important. His firm's partners were all there. It could mean a promotion, a significant raise. More important than your mother's funeral." It wasn't a question. Amanda sighed dramatically. "It's not about importance. It's about timing. Mom was already gone. She wouldn't have known whether I was there or not. I would have known. Everyone who loved your mother would have known. Dad, be reasonable. Mom wouldn't have wanted me to damage Robert's career prospects. She always supported us, always wanted the best for us." I stared at my daughter, trying to see some resemblance to the compassionate, empathetic child Margaret and I had raised. Instead, I saw only Robert's influence, the cold calculation, the materialism, the self-centeredness. "Your mother called for you in her final weeks," I said quietly. 3 times she tried to reach you when the pain was unbearable. 3 times you were too busy. "She never told me it was that serious," Amanda protested. "You both said it was just some health issues, nothing alarming." "Because she didn't want to burden you. She wanted to protect you like she always did." My voice broke. "She loved you so much, Amanda. She made me promise to forgive you." "Forgive me for what?" "For having my own life, my own family to take care of." Amanda's voice rose defensively. "You and Mom always taught me that family comes first. Well, Robert and the kids are my family now." The words struck like physical blows. "And your mother and I aren't." Amanda had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "That's not what I meant. It's just different now. I have responsibilities, priorities. Like birthday parties." "Dad, stop it. That's not fair. Robert's connections are crucial for our future. For the children's future." I stood up abruptly. "Wait here." I went to my bedroom and retrieved the letter Margaret had written for Amanda, the one that should have accompanied the silver locket, now buried with my wife. Returning to the living room, I handed it to Amanda without a word. She opened it hesitantly, her eyes scanning the handwritten page. I knew the contents by heart, having read it numerous times since Margaret's death, my dearest Amanda. By the time you read this, I will be gone. I want you to know that I understand the demands of building your own life, your own family. But remember that love is the only true legacy we leave behind. Not wealth, not status, not professional achievements. Just love. I hope you'll teach Jackson and Sophia what truly matters in life as I tried to teach you. I will love you forever. Mom." Amanda read it quickly, then folded it and set it aside with a small, tight smile. "That's nice, Dad. Mom always did have a way with words." The casual dismissal of Margaret's final message to her daughter crystallized something in me. This woman sitting in my living room in her expensive clothes and perfect manicure wasn't the daughter we had raised. She was someone else entirely. "I think you should go now," I said quietly. Amanda looked startled. "But we haven't discussed the arrangements yet. The house, Mom's things." "Your mother has been dead less than a week, Amanda. Her side of the bed is still indented from her body. Her toothbrush is still in the bathroom. And you want to discuss arrangements? Dad, I'm just being practical. You need to think about the future." "The future?" I laughed hollowly. My future died with your mother. Don't be melodramatic, Dad. You still have me, the grandchildren. And you need to think about what happens to your estate. Robert and I were thinking, get out. The words came out quiet but firm. Amanda's eyes widened. What? I said get out. Now. She stood adjusting her designer purse on her shoulder. You're upset. I understand. We can talk about this when you're feeling more rational. There's nothing to discuss. Your mother made me promise to forgive you, and I'm trying. But right now, I need you to leave. Amanda moved toward the door, then paused. Dad, I know this is hard, but you need to understand that I have my own life now, my own priorities, and I need to know what to expect regarding the inheritance. It affects our financial planning. In that moment, looking at my daughter's calculated expression, I made my decision. Margaret had asked me to forgive Amanda, not to enable her continued selfishness. Goodbye, Amanda, I said, opening the front door. I'll have my lawyer contact you. As she drove away in her luxury SUV, I closed the door and leaned against it, sliding down until I sat on the floor. For the first time since Margaret's death, I felt something other than grief. Resolve. Determination. A clear path forward. I reached for my phone and confirmed my appointment with Thomas Green for the following morning. It was time to ensure that the values Margaret and I had tried to instill in our daughter, compassion, empathy, family loyalty, were reflected in my final arrangements, even if they hadn't taken root in Amanda's heart. Thomas Green's law office hadn't changed in the 20 years I'd known him. The same leather chairs, the same oak desk, even the same framed diplomas on the wall. There was comfort in the familiarity, a rare constant in a world that had shifted irrevocably since Margaret's death. Thomas greeted me with a warm handshake and genuine sympathy. Unlike the platitudes I'd heard repeatedly at the funeral, his simple, "I miss her too, Larry," struck the right note. He had been not just our lawyer, but our friend, joining us for holiday dinners, celebrating milestones with us over the years. I was surprised Amanda wasn't at the service, he said carefully as we settled into our seats. Is everything all right? I sighed heavily. No, Thomas, everything is not all right. That's why I'm here. Over the next hour, I explained everything. Margaret's illness, Amanda's absence during those final months, the birthday party chosen over the funeral, and finally the visit where she asked about her inheritance less than a week after her mother was buried. Thomas listened without interruption, his expression growing increasingly troubled. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. That doesn't sound like the Amanda I know, he said finally. It's not the Amanda Margaret and I raised. I agreed. But it's who she's become, or perhaps who she always was, and we were too blind to see it. What are you thinking, Larry? You mentioned changing your will. I nodded, my resolve strengthening as I verbalized the plan that had been forming since Margaret's funeral. Currently, everything goes to Amanda upon my death. That was the plan Margaret and I agreed on years ago. But now you're reconsidering. I want to change it, significantly. I leaned forward, hands clasped tightly together. Margaret was passionate about two causes: the children's cancer ward at Memorial Hospital, where she volunteered, and the scholarship fund for foster children aging out of the system. Thomas nodded, making notes. I remember. She organized that fundraiser every year. I want 70% of my estate to go to those two organizations, split evenly between them. Thomas's eyebrows rose slightly, but he continued writing. And the remaining 30%, 20% in trusts for Jackson and Sophia, which they can access when they turn 25. Not 18, 25. I want them to have time to develop values their mother seems to have forgotten. And the final 10%, to Amanda, Thomas set down his pen and looked at me directly. Larry, that's a substantial change. The estate must be worth about $4 million, give or take, including the house investment's life insurance. It felt strange discussing such matters, so clinically reducing Margaret's and my life's work to dollar figures. Amanda and Robert have been expecting all of it. They've made that abundantly clear. They'll contest the will, Thomas warned. Robert will hire the best lawyers he can find. Let him try. I'm of sound mind. I'm not disinheriting Amanda completely. I'm making a reasonable decision about my assets. Thomas studied me for a long moment. Is this what Margaret would want? The question hit hard. I thought back to Margaret's final request. Promise you'll forgive Amanda. Margaret wanted me to forgive Amanda, I said slowly. But she also believed in consequences, in teaching values through actions, not just words. I met Thomas's gaze steadily. Amanda needs to learn that family isn't about what you can get from people. It's about showing up when it matters, being there, putting others before yourself. Thomas nodded slowly. It's your decision, Larry. I'll draw up the new will today, but I want you to take a week to think about it before signing. Make sure this isn't just grief and anger speaking. It's clarity, Thomas. For the first time since Margaret died, I see things clearly. As I stood to leave, Thomas asked one more question. Do you want me to inform Amanda of these changes now, or after everything is finalized? I considered this carefully. Wait 2 weeks. Give me time to be absolutely certain. Then send her an official letter. She should understand that choices have consequences. Driving home, I felt a strange mixture of sorrow and relief. Sorrow that it had come to this, that the daughter Margaret and I had raised with such love could become someone who valued money over relationships. Relief that I had found a way to honor both Margaret's request for forgiveness and her lifelong commitment to helping others. That evening, sitting in Margaret's garden as the sun set, I felt her presence more strongly than I had since her death. The gentle breeze seemed to carry her voice. You're doing the right thing, Larry. Love sometimes means setting boundaries. Whether it was my imagination or something more spiritual, I took comfort in the sense that Margaret understood. That somewhere, somehow, she approved of my decision to redirect our legacy toward causes that reflected our shared values, rather than enabling the materialistic mindset that had consumed our daughter. 2 weeks later, Thomas sent the official letter to Amanda, detailing the changes to my will in clear legal language. I braced myself for the storm I knew would follow, finding strength in the certainty that Margaret would have done the same in my position. Not out of malice or revenge, but out of a parent's ultimate responsibility, teaching values that last beyond our lifetime. The letter from Thomas arrived on a Tuesday. By Wednesday evening, my phone had 27 missed calls from Amanda and 17 from Robert. I let them all go to voicemail, not yet ready for the confrontation I knew was inevitable. The messages grew increasingly angry with Robert, eventually threatening legal action, and Amanda cycling between tears and accusations of betrayal. On Thursday morning, I was in the garden, Margaret's garden, pulling weeds and talking to her, as had become my habit, when a car screeched into the driveway. Car doors slammed, followed by angry footsteps on the path. I didn't need to look up to know who had arrived. "Dad," Amanda's voice cut through the peaceful morning air. "What the hell is this?" I straightened slowly, my back protesting the movement after an hour of gardening. Amanda stood on the path. Thomas's letter clutched in one hand, her face flushed with anger. Robert loomed behind her, his expression thunderous. "Good morning, Amanda. Robert." I removed my gardening gloves calmly. "Would you like to come inside for coffee?" "Don't. Good morning, me." Amanda thrust the letter forward. "What is this? 70% to charity, 10% to me. Are you out of your mind? I regarded my daughter steadily. I'm perfectly sane, Amanda. Just disappointed. Disappointed. You're punishing me. This is cruel and vindictive, and it's not what Mom would have wanted. At the mention of Margaret, something snapped inside me. Don't you dare presume to know what your mother would have wanted. You couldn't be bothered to visit her when she was dying. You chose a birthday party over her funeral. You have no right to speak for her now. Robert stepped forward, his lawyer face on. Larry, this is obviously grief talking. You're not thinking clearly. We understand you're upset about Amanda missing the funeral, but this reaction is extreme and potentially legally problematic. There's nothing legally problematic about it, Robert. I've consulted extensively with Thomas. The will is ironclad. We'll contest it, Robert threatened. We'll argue undue influence, diminished capacity due to grief. No judge will uphold this vindictive change. I smiled thinly. By all means try. Margaret and I paid for your law degree after all. You might as well use it. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time, not the calculated ones I'd seen during her last visit. Dad, please. We were counting on that inheritance. We've made financial plans based on it. The kids' private school tuition, the vacation home we put a deposit on. That was your mistake, I replied quietly. Counting on money that wasn't yours yet, making plans to spend it before it was in your hands. Your mother and I taught you better than that. This is about the funeral, isn't it? You're punishing me because I missed one day. One day, Dad. Not just any day, Amanda. The day we laid your mother to rest. The day you should have been by my side, saying goodbye to the woman who gave you life, who loved you unconditionally, who called for you in her final weeks. Amanda's face crumpled. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Mom would have forgiven me. She always did. Yes, she would have. And I'm trying to forgive you too, Amanda. But forgiveness doesn't mean there are no consequences for your actions. Robert put his arm around Amanda's shoulders. This is ridiculous. Your own daughter, your own grandchildren. You'd rather give everything to strangers. Not strangers. Causes Margaret believed in deeply. Children fighting cancer. Foster kids trying to build a future. And not everything. Jackson and Sophia will each receive 10% when they're old enough to appreciate it. Amanda wiped her tears angrily. Fine. If that's how you feel, we'll just go. But don't expect to see the grandchildren again. If we're not family enough for your money, then you're not family enough for our time. The threat was meant to wound, to make me reconsider. Instead, it only confirmed I was making the right decision. Are you really using my grandchildren as bargaining chips, Amanda? Is that who you've become? She faltered, perhaps hearing how her words sounded spoken aloud. Robert stepped in smoothly. What Amanda means is that this feels like a rejection of our family. Actions have consequences, as you said. If you choose to redirect your estate away from your only daughter and grandchildren, that naturally affects our relationship. I looked at them both, my daughter and the son-in-law, who had helped shape her into someone I barely recognized. You're right, Robert. Actions do have consequences. Your actions showed me your priorities very clearly. My actions reflect my response to that reality. Amanda made one last attempt. Dad, please. Mom wouldn't want this. She loved us. She loved the grandkids. She would want them provided for. They are provided for. 20% of the estate is substantial. And you're right, your mother loved you all deeply. But she also believed in teaching values, not just providing money. So this is some kind of lesson. You're using your will to teach me a lesson. Amanda's voice rose incredulously. No, Amanda. The lesson was your mother's funeral. This is just the consequence. I turned back to the garden. Now, if you'll excuse me, I promised your mother I'd keep her roses healthy. They left in a flurry of slammed doors and screeching tires. As the sound faded, I knelt again beside Margaret's favorite rose bush, my hands shaking slightly as I carefully pruned the dead branches to make way for new growth. "Was I too harsh, Margaret?" I whispered to the empty garden. "Did I do the right thing?" No answer came, of course, just the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze and the distant call of birds going about their business. Life continuing, as it somehow does, even when our hearts are broken. That night, I dreamt of Margaret. She was healthy again, vibrant, her hands dirt-stained from gardening. "Love is patient, Larry," she said in the dream. "Give her time. She'll remember who she really is." I woke with tears on my cheeks, but a strange sense of peace in my heart. Margaret had always been wiser than me about matters of the heart. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps Amanda would eventually find her way back to the values we'd tried to instill. And if not, well, the Children's Cancer Ward and the Foster Youth Scholarship Fund would do tremendous good with the resources that would come their way. Either way, I had honored Margaret's legacy in the best way I knew how. Not with blind forgiveness that enabled bad behavior, but with the kind of love that holds people accountable while leaving the door open for reconciliation. 3 months passed. The seasons changed, summer giving way to fall. Margaret's garden began its annual retreat into dormancy, though I maintained it faithfully, talking to her among the fading blooms. The silence from Amanda and her family was absolute. No calls, no visits, no updates about the grandchildren. I filled my days with small routines that kept me moving forward. Morning coffee on the porch, tending the garden, lunch with Frank once a week. I began volunteering at the Children's Cancer Ward, where Margaret had spent so many hours reading to kids whose bravery in the face of suffering humbled me. During one such visit, I encountered Dr. Patel, who had overseen Margaret's treatment. "Larry," she greeted me warmly. "It's wonderful to see you here. Margaret would be so pleased." We chatted briefly about the ward, the children, the ongoing need for resources. Then, Dr. Patel surprised me. "We're forming an advisory board for our new comprehensive care initiative," she explained. "People who understand firsthand what families go through during treatment. Would you consider joining us? Margaret always spoke so highly of your practical approach to problems." I accepted immediately, grateful for the opportunity to honor Margaret's memory in such a tangible way. For the first time since her death, I felt a spark of purpose beyond mere survival. That evening, checking my rarely used email account, I found a message from an unfamiliar address, Axon Thompson. Emailed Durham. With trembling hands, I opened it. "Dear Grandpa, it's Jackson. Mom doesn't know I'm writing to you. I made this email account at school. I miss you. Sophia misses you too. Mom and Dad fight a lot now. Dad stays at work really late. Mom cries sometimes when she thinks we're asleep. I found a picture of Grandma in Mom's room. She was looking at it and crying. Can we see you sometime? Love, Jackson." My heart contracted painfully at this window into my grandchildren's world. Without hesitation, I replied, "Dear Jackson, I miss you and Sophia very much. I think about you every day. I'm sorry things are difficult at home right now. Sometimes adults have disagreements that take time to resolve. I would love to see you, but I need to respect your parents' decisions right now. Know that I love you both very much, and my door is always open. Your grandma would be so proud of you for reaching out. You're a thoughtful young man. Love, Grandpa." I agonized over whether I'd said the right things, whether I should contact Amanda directly. But before I could decide, a thunderous knocking at my front door startled me from my thoughts. Opening it, I found Amanda standing in the rain, mascara streaking down her face hair, plastered to her head. She looked nothing like the polished, controlled woman who had demanded her inheritance 3 months earlier. "Dad," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Can I come in? I stepped aside wordlessly, fetching a towel from the hall closet and handing it to her as she dripped on the entryway floor. She took it with shaking hands, making a half-hearted attempt to dry her hair. "I'm sorry to show up like this," she said finally. "I didn't know where else to go." I guided her to the living room, settling her in what had always been her favorite chair by the fireplace. "What happened, Amanda?" She laughed bitterly. "What happened? Everything, Dad. Everything happened." She looked up, eyes red-rimmed. "Robert's been having an affair with his assistant for 2 years." I sat heavily on the couch across from her. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" Her tone was challenging. "Or do you think it's just another consequence I deserve?" "No one deserves betrayal, Amanda, no matter what mistakes they've made." She seemed to deflate at that, the combativeness leaking out of her. "I found out 3 weeks ago. He's not even denying it. Says I've been emotionally unavailable. Says I've changed." "Have you?" I asked quietly. Amanda was silent for a long moment, staring at her hands. "Maybe. I don't know who I am anymore, Dad. I look in the mirror, and I don't recognize myself." She raised her eyes to meet mine. "I found Mom's letter, the one you gave me after the funeral. I've been reading it every night. And she was right. About everything. About what matters." Amanda's voice broke. "I missed her funeral for a party, Dad. What kind of daughter does that?" "One who lost her way," I said gently. "It happens sometimes." I keep thinking about the last time I saw her. Really saw her, not just a quick visit. It was Christmas, and she looked so thin, but she was still fussing over everyone, making sure we all had enough to eat, that the kids liked their presents. Amanda's tears flowed freely now. "She gave me that silver scarf, the one I'd admired in the store window months before. She remembered. She always remembered everything." I swallowed hard against the lump forming in my throat. That was your mother, always noticing, always remembering. And I couldn't be bothered to attend her funeral. Amanda covered her face with her hands. "I've been so selfish, Dad. So focused on things that don't matter. Robert's career, our status, the right neighborhood, the right schools. None of it means anything without love," I finished for her. She nodded, unable to speak through her tears. I moved to kneel beside her chair, taking her hands in mine, remembering how small they had once been in my grasp when she was a little girl. "Your mother's last request to me was that I forgive you," I told her softly. "She knew you better than anyone. She knew you would find your way back eventually." Amanda looked at me with desperate hope. "Is it too late, Dad? Have I ruined everything?" I thought of Margaret's voice in my dream. "Hov is patient, Larry. Give her time. She'll remember who she really is." "It's never too late to remember who you really are, Amanda. The girl your mother and I raised. The girl who gave away her toys to classmates who had less. The girl who spent her allowance buying flowers for your mother just because. That girl is still in there." Amanda leaned forward, resting her forehead against our joined hands. "I want to find her again, Dad. I want to be someone Mom would be proud of." "Then you will be," I said simply. "One day at a time." We talked through the night, Amanda pouring out everything. Her unhappiness in the marriage, the emptiness of the life she and Robert had built, her growing awareness that she had traded authentic connection for material success. As dawn broke, she asked the question I'd been waiting for. "The will, Dad. I understand now. It wasn't about punishing me. It was about preserving Mom's values." I nodded. "The money would only have continued to fuel the life that's making you so unhappy, Amanda. Your mother and I always wanted more for you than that." She smiled tremulously. "She was always the smarter parent." "Don't I know it?" I agreed, returning her smile. As Amanda prepared to leave, to face the difficult conversations with Robert that lay ahead, she paused at the door. "Dad." The Children's Cancer Ward, the foster youth scholarships. Would it be all right if I got involved too? Volunteered my time. My heart swelled with a mixture of pride and gratitude. Your mother would love that, Amanda, and so would I. She hugged me fiercely before leaving the first real embrace we'd shared since before Margaret's death. As I watched her drive away, I felt Margaret's presence beside me, her hand in mine. You were right, I whispered to the morning air. She remembered who she really is. 1 year after Margaret's death, Amanda, Jackson, Sophia, and I gathered at her grave. The day was clear and cool, autumn leaves creating a tapestry of red and gold around the cemetery. Amanda placed a bouquet of Margaret's favorite flowers, yellow roses from our garden, against the headstone. So much had changed in a year. Amanda had divorced Robert, moving with the children to a modest house just 10 minutes from mine. She'd returned to teaching, her original passion before Robert convinced her it wasn't prestigious enough, at a local elementary school. The sparkle in her eyes, absent for so many years, had returned. Most importantly, she'd reconnected with the values Margaret and I had tried to instill: compassion, generosity, authenticity. Every weekend, she volunteered at the Children's Cancer Ward, often bringing Jackson and Sophia along to read to the patients or deliver handmade cards. I wish Mom could see this, Amanda said softly as we stood together at the grave. All of us here together. She sees, I replied, certain of it in a way I couldn't explain. She knows. Jackson, now 11, placed a smooth stone he'd painted with the word love on top of the headstone. Grandma taught me to paint rocks, he explained, before she got sick. Sophia, 8 and missing her 2 front teeth, added her own contribution, a handwritten poem about butterflies and heaven that brought tears to my eyes. As the children wandered a short distance away to explore the cemetery's ancient oak tree, Amanda turned to me. I want to talk to you about the will, Dad. I tensed slightly. Though our relationship had been restored, we hadn't discussed the changes I'd made. What about it? I've been thinking about it a lot, about what Mom would want. She took a deep breath. I think you should keep it as it is. The 70% for the charities, I mean. I stared at her in surprise. Amanda. I'm serious, Dad. I've been volunteering at the cancer ward for months now. I've seen what they can do with proper funding, how many children they can help. She smiled sadly. Mom would want that. And honestly, so do I. I felt a surge of pride so intense, it was almost painful. Your mother would be so proud of you right now, Amanda. So am I. I'm just trying to be the person she always knew I could be. Amanda glanced at her children playing happily beneath the oak tree. I want Jackson and Sophia to understand what really matters. Not things, not status, not money. Just love and being there for each other. Later that day, as we all gathered in Margaret's garden for a small memorial picnic, I watched Amanda with her children, patient, present, fully engaged in a way she hadn't been before. She was telling them stories about their grandmother, laughing through tears at particularly cherished memories. That evening, after Amanda and the children had gone home, I sat alone in the garden as twilight settled around me. The pain of Margaret's absence remained a constant companion, but alongside it now lived something else, peace. The knowledge that her legacy continued, not just through charitable donations, but through our daughter, who had found her way back to the values that mattered most. You were right, Margaret, I whispered to the gathering darkness. Love is patient. Love perseveres. Love transforms. A gentle breeze stirred the garden, carrying the scent of Margaret's roses. In that moment, I felt her presence more strongly than ever before, not as a ghost or a supernatural visitation, but as the enduring power of love that transcends even death. The legacy she had left behind was alive in Amanda, in our grandchildren, in the children at the hospital, who would benefit from her generosity for years to come. Sometimes, the greatest gifts come from our deepest wounds. Amanda's choice, choosing a birthday party over her mother's funeral, had initially seemed unforgivable. But that choice and its consequences had ultimately led her back to herself, to the person Margaret and I had raised her to be. And in the end, isn't that what parents hope for most? Not that our children never make mistakes, but that when they do, they find their way back to what matters, that they learn, grow, and ultimately become the people we always knew they could be. As I walked back into the house we had shared for so many years, I carried with me the certainty that Margaret's love, for me, for Amanda, for our grandchildren, continued to work its quiet magic in all our lives. Not through dramatic interventions or sudden revelations, but through the patient, persistent power of values lived authentically, day after day. In losing Margaret, I had nearly lost Amanda too, but in finding our way back to each other, we had rediscovered what Margaret had always known, that love in its truest form never dies. It simply changes shape, continuing to guide us long after the physical presence is gone. Have you ever experienced a moment when a painful situation ultimately led to positive transformation? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey of grief, forgiveness, and healing. Remember, it's never too late to reconnect with what truly matters.